I know what you're thinking. There's too many streaming services already. It's an endless wave of Hulu, Netflix, Tubi, Freevee, Snarfu, Lobi, or whatever nonsense an overworked marketing department spits out after their 5th round of coffee. As for me, I don't care for streaming. What's the point of paying for a service that only has, 4 things I actually want to watch? For the most part, I steer clear of the lot. That is, until I got an ad for a new platform called Thumps. And I clicked it because I thought it was a post, one of those sneaky ads that pretends to be something else. The title of the fake post read, "Did you know this site makes scary movies scarier?" So I clicked it and wound up at the website for Thumps, a streaming service for all things horror. I was about to click out of it when a pop-up caught my attention. Beta testers wanted. Sign up now and get Thumps free for life. The excessive amount of exclamation marks should have been a warning that something was rotten in the state of Denmark. Or, Delaware in my case. But access to a library of horror content for free? Forever? I couldn't help it. At heart, I'm a little greedy and a lot gullible. What else can I say? So I entered my email address. It didn't ask for anything else. Not a credit card number or mailing address or my mother's maiden name. After I hit submit, I came to a screen that said, "Thank you for joining our beta testing program. We will reach out to you soon." A lot of exclamation points. I checked my email, but there was nothing there. I checked a few more times over the next several days before giving up. Maybe it had been some weird scam after all. I expected to start getting flooded with spam messages, but my email was blessedly, persistently quiet. It wasn't until a few weeks later, when I'd all but forgotten about the whole affair, when I received a package in the mail. A bright yellow box with stark black letters reading, "Thumps Beta Tester Kit." I must have stared at that box for 5 minutes straight, wondering how they'd managed to track down my mailing address just from my email. Privacy is truly dead. I almost threw the box in the trash on principle, but curiosity got the better of me, as it usually does. I tore open the box to discover just 2 things, a sheet of paper and what appeared to be a headband. I started with the paper, which read, "Have you ever watched a scary movie and found yourself bored? Like the scares just don't scare the way they used to? Do you wish you could really, truly be scared by a movie? Welcome, horror fan, to Thumps, the only streaming service that is 100% guaranteed to give you the scare of your life. We use a host of emerging technologies to analyze your brainwaves and adapt our films in real time, turning regular old horror movies into tailor-made films designed with you in mind. We use a host of emerging technologies to analyze your brainwaves and adapt our films in real time, turning regular old horror movies into tailor-made films designed with you in mind. Never be bored during a horror movie again. Simply put on the enclosed headband, then visit the website below. Pick a movie and see what can happen when your content watches you." I read that note 3 times, and it still didn't make any sense. If I wore the headband, it would read my mind, and that would make me like the movie more somehow. Now I knew this was a scam. And yet, I picked up the headband and placed it around my head. It was just normal fabric, nothing fancy. I waited for it to do something before realizing how dumb that was. Then I turned to my computer. I typed the URL from the bottom of the letter into my browser and entered my email when prompted. Before me was a totally normal streaming platform. It was laid out exactly how you would expect, with a menu on the left and different categories of movies on the right. The only difference was that I'd never heard of any of these movies. They all sounded like generic B-horror films. So far, it seemed like just another lame streaming service with a weird gimmick. Whatever, I'd come this far. I scrolled down and picked a movie at random. I can't remember what it was called. Something like The House at the Fork in the Road. It's a generic, completely forgettable title. The movie started off pretty normal. Family driving down a highway to their brand new home, conveniently situated in the middle of nowhere. Obvious tension between the husband and wife, kids bickering in the back. Only 10 minutes into the movie, and I already felt myself tuning out. Suddenly, the scene stalled, as though it was running on a projector that had jammed. Then it started up again. But it was different this time. Instead of being shot in the third person, the filming was now in found footage style. The camera held by the father as he filmed his family staring up at their creepy new house. The film picked up seamlessly from there. I paused the movie and just stared. There was no way that it actually happened, right? Or if it did, it had to be some kind of gimmick in the movie. Maybe I just missed it or something. I hit replay and started from the beginning. This time, the beginning of the movie was also found footage style. I watched it in stunned silence. No, that wasn't possible. It hadn't been like that before. I was sure of it. Now, I couldn't look away from the screen. I rewatched the opening with total fascination and a little shiver in my spine. I'd always liked found footage because it made movies feel more real, the danger more present. Well, it certainly felt that way now, in more ways than one. Now I couldn't look away from the screen. I rewatched the opening with total fascination and a little shiver in my spine. The story itself wasn't really anything special, though. The family moved into the new house and immediately discovered it was haunted. The two kids noticed it first and took to the basement to investigate. As the camera panned around the basement, I waited for something to jump out of the shadows with no real interest. Jump scares have never really done it for me. They always feel sort of cheap and fleeting. They don't stick with you after the movie ends. When the camera had panned about halfway through the basement, the screen shivered again. When it came back into clear focus, my heart dropped. There, sitting on the basement floor in the camera's spotlight, was Charlie. Charlie was a brown teddy bear with two black eyes and a stitched mouth. His fur was matted from years of love, and he was missing one of his ears, the result of an ill-fated game of tug-of-war with the family dog. I knew all this because Charlie was my teddy bear. And if I wasn't mistaken, he was sitting up on the shelf in my bedroom closet at that very moment. I paused the movie and sprinted upstairs, throwing open my closet door and tearing through the boxes and junk that littered the shelf. There, in the back, I felt my fingers brush against his faded old fur. I pulled him out and marveled at him in my hand for just a moment. I was back downstairs in a flash, comparing my bear to the one on screen. They were identical, down to the last detail. The bear on the screen was even wearing the same bandana, a bit of blue checkered fabric that my mom had made especially for Charlie from her sewing scraps. "It's not possible," I muttered as I turned my bear over in my hands. I hugged Charlie tight to my chest on instinct. My heart was racing as my hand reached out to press the spacebar to restart the movie. I had to know what happened next. I had this wild thought that if I got to the end of the movie, it would all make sense. It had to. The camera panned back to the children. This time, the little boy looked different. His close-cropped blonde hair had been replaced by shaggy brown curls. He had a smattering of freckles across his nose. He was wearing a striped blue shirt with a little anchor embroidered on the pocket. I recognized that boy. from my 3rd grade school photos. I remembered my mom picking out that shirt especially for the occasion, reminding me to smile big before ushering me out the door. I watched in total fascination and no small amount of dread as the children tried to convince their mother that there was something awful in the basement. At first, she didn't believe them. Parents never do. But as the movie went on, some strange things began to happen. Birds flying into windows, blood coming out of the bathroom faucet, strange scratching noises in the walls. With Mom convinced, next came Dad, who predictably scoffed at his wife's frantic pleading that something was wrong with their house. They needed to get out now. I glanced down at the time. Only 20 minutes left to convince the husband and try to escape. I knew this formula well. I was betting on the husband dying to save the wife and kids. The sense of familiarity started to put me at ease. I could follow the movie beat for beat to the very last scene. As the husband ventured down into the basement, determined to prove his wife and children wrong, I waited for the final reveal. Probably some sort of old hag ghost that would come screaming out at the camera. The father walked carefully through the basement, the camera picking up the sound of his heavy breathing and nothing else. Then a small creaking sound to his left. The screen shivered once more before the camera panned quickly to the noise. There, hanging from the rafters, was a woman in a white nightgown. Her soft brown hair fell in waves over her face, obscuring it from view. Her nightgown was ragged and dirty. Her feet were a dull gray color, as though she'd been dead for some time. What caused my breath to catch in my throat were her fingernails. They were painted a bright eggshell blue. 4 fingernails on her left hand, the nail on her ring finger missing entirely. My vision tunneled and everything around me started to tilt. I knew that hand. The one that had fixed my shirt. That sewed the bandana for Charlie. It was my mother's hand. I trembled as I watched my mother on the screen. Her body spinning slowly in its noose. Then, her quiet, raspy voice whispering my name. Joey. I wanted desperately to stop the movie, but I was frozen where I sat. Is it really possible, I wondered, to drop dead from terror? I was pretty sure I was about to find out. 10 days, came the whisper as my mother's body began to spin faster. The rope creaked under the weight. 10 days. Then her body dropped to the floor as though the rope had been cut. Everything was still. Even the father's breathing had cut off. I sat there for what felt like an hour, but must have been no more than 3 seconds, watching my mother's lifeless corpse on the floor. Then, an instant later, she was crawling toward the camera. Joey, come find me. Joey. The rasp was no longer a whisper, but a moan. I felt myself scrambling back against the couch in tandem with the father as he ran backwards, looking desperately for the stairs while keeping the woman in view of the camera. Don't let me die. What is this? I whispered. This isn't happening. This isn't real. But the woman on the screen didn't care that she couldn't be real. Just then, her face lifted to the camera. It was undeniably my mother's face, but ravaged from the effects of decay. Her gray skin hung loose from her bones, and her eyes were clouded over with a glassy film. Her mouth dropped open, and I swore I could see maggots and worms squirming inside her. I threw my laptop across the room so hard it broke against the opposite wall. I yanked the headband off and threw that too. I couldn't get enough air, no matter how hard I gasped, and for a moment I was certain that I was going to die, if not from the impossible horror on the screen, then because my heart gave out from the strain. It took me over an hour before I was calm enough to stand on my own 2 feet. The first thing I did was pick up the whole mess. My broken laptop, the headband, the note, the box, and stuff it all down in the trash. Whatever had just happened, whatever I'd just seen, I didn't want anything to do with it. Next, I called my mom, who was completely bewildered at my panic over the phone. "Honey, calm down. What's wrong? What happened?" she asked, the confusion in her voice genuine. I couldn't think of what to say. Any version of the truth would have her driving to my apartment to make sure I wasn't having a mental breakdown. I just had a nightmare that something happened to you, and I just had to make sure that you were okay. She spent the next hour soothing me over the phone, reassuring me that everything in the real world was just fine. Forget everything else. By the time we hung up, I felt just a bit better. In that short hour, I had reconstructed the narrative in my head. It really was a nightmare, or some kind of hallucination from the stress I'd been under at work. Everything was fine. Of course it was fine. Over the next few days, I resolved to put that strange, awful experience behind me. I went to work, I bought a new computer. I texted my friends and chatted with colleagues like nothing had happened at all, because of course, nothing did happen. I just had to keep telling myself that. Except, something isn't letting me pretend. A few days after watching the movie, strange things started to happen. At first, they were things I could explain away. The sound of footsteps in the hall was just my imagination. The low whispering that I heard in the dead of night was the wind. The shadows out of the corner of my eyes were due to exhaustion from those sleepless nights. But then, it started escalating. 2 days ago, I turned on my work computer and saw my mother's bloated corpse flash across the screen for just a second. Yesterday, I came home to my living room, trashed, like a tornado had ripped it apart, and there was Charlie in the middle of the chaos, watching me. Today, I got a call from my mother. I picked it up, glad to be able to hear her voice, to reassure myself that everything was fine and normal. But when I put the phone to my ear, all I could hear was static. "Hello? Mom?" Nothing but fuzz. "I think we have a bad connection," I said, ready to cut the call and call her back. But before I could, I heard a voice. A low, raspy whisper that sent a violent shiver down through my body. "Joey, come find me. Joey, don't let me die." "Who is this?" I said. I don't even remember deciding to say it. My voice sounded like it was coming from far away, through a tunnel or something. "Finish the movie, Joey." And then, a horrible scream. The most blood-curdling sound I'd ever heard, and somehow, I just knew it was her. The call dropped, and I was alone with the realization that it had been exactly 10 days since I started the movie. I've been calling for hours, but I can't reach her. I drove to her house, but she wasn't there. I've asked everyone I know and looked everywhere online, but it's like the streaming service just vanished out of existence. Nobody knows what I'm talking about, and there's no record of the company ever existing. As I tell this, I can tell that time is running out. Every second I wait, my mom is loves her to death, and there's only one thing I can do to save her. So please, has anyone here signed up for Thumps? I desperately need to kill my subscription. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. A quick shout out to my patrons, Old Penguin, Rinku Star, Melissa Perez, Icy Narrates, Seven Cities Journalist, Cupcake Hips, Eric Cifuentes, Alonso, Austin My Love, Ellie Hutmeyer, Jesse Hartley, Lawrence Wallen, Mr. Sankofa, and William Hartley. I always try to link a different charity in the description, so go ahead and check that out. I'm also going to start having more things on my Patreon soon, so keep your eyes peeled. And as always, I'd love to know how I can be praying for you, so go ahead and drop a comment and let me know how I can do that. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video.